So, welcome everyone to another episode of The Human Factor. My name is Theresa Miller, and I'm a principal technologist with Cohesity. Today, I'm excited to have Nikki Kanter as our guest. She has been teaching for many years and has some really unique perspectives to share with us in terms of what she's experienced during the pandemic and those changes, but also has some really great tips for keeping the kids busy this summer while we're still all functioning in somewhat of a lockdown state. So welcome, Nikki. If you could introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, and we'll start talking.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Nikki Kanter. I substitute teach for 4K through third grade. I also sub for the paraprofessionals in the special ed classroom and music, art, gym. I've been subbing for 10 years. Before that, I stayed home with my kids, and before that, I taught first grade.
Awesome. So yeah, you've definitely been in the classroom for some time. Sounds like you've even dealt with a lot of different school ages, which is also fantastic. I think it actually shows your ability to align and adjust, which certainly had to happen when this pandemic struck, right? So sure. What changed for you, and what changed even for some of your peers that were teaching? I have a feeling your experience might have been a little different, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what changed for you first.
So the changes for sure with not being in the classroom. So as a sub, when I'm in the classroom, the teachers always have the plans for the day written out for me. They have everything up on the computer that I should need for the smartboard or anything to teach a lesson. And of course, having to do all of that from home as a sub was a lot more difficult. And I think the difference from being in the classroom and teaching online is that I was able to get to know the parents a lot better. When you're in a classroom full of, there were 22 kids in this kindergarten class, a lot of times as a sub, you just don't really get to know the parents as well as the teacher does for the full school year. It's mostly little notes back and forth about issues or things that are happening, maybe a phone call here and there. But I felt that this time I was one-on-one with the parents as well as the students during the online learning. So I got to know the parents very well. I learned a lot about their home life, a lot about their, the parents that were working or were furloughed or, their situations at home, which I never would have known about had I been in the classroom, because you're just not that open with talking about that stuff, unless you're face to face like we were on Google Meets. So that was really a big change for me.
I could see that. I experienced that at home as well. I'm sure there were certain teachers that heard from me probably more than they ever have as we worked through it.
Sure.
So that's a really interesting point you made. I hadn't thought about the fact that potentially not only was I reaching out, they had many others, different dynamic. So.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yes, and other changes were, the full-time teachers too. Not only did they have to try to figure out how to still teach their students from home, but they have kids at home as well, just like you were saying. Then you've got your kids at home, and they may be in a different school district, so things are done differently there. So they're trying to figure out how to get out information to their own students, yet how to learn the information from their child's teacher in their child's school so that they can continue the work with their own children at home. So I think juggling all of that was a big change for a lot of teachers, because normally when school's in session, their kids are at the building and the teachers can do their job in the classroom with their kids. But trying to juggle all of that at home, I think, was a big change for a lot of people, especially ones with really young kids, because that's when it made it tough. I was with a 5-year-old. So of course, when we connected, there had to be a parent with them. You can't just put a 5-year-old in front of a Google Meet or expect them to do it themselves. So parents, people that were juggling teaching and their own kids, I think that was a big change and a big challenge as well for them.
So did that mean that your schedule had to be more flexible to the parents and their family and their day? How did that affect you personally, if that was true?
Absolutely. So I did have some essential workers, and they said, I would put out I did a sign up genius. So they would sign up for times to meet with me to do lessons, and we would meet on Google Meets. And some parents that were essential workers and weren't home during the day needed to connect with me at night. So I did always offer like a 5:30 or a 6 o'clock meeting as well. So my hours went, sporadically throughout the day. And I wasn't working from 7 in the morning to 5:30 at night. You have certain hours and certain times you meet with the kids and things like that. And then there's downtime where you can just check on some of the data that's coming through for what they were doing. But flexibility was the key in this for sure. And it always is in teaching, but I think it was more so with this just because of the situation.
Yeah. So did I see something where you may have even done some bedtime stories for your classes?
I did. I have to give credit to my niece for that idea. But yes, my niece teaches 3 and 4-year-olds, and she was already doing that during the whole pandemic with hers because she had very small groups. But then I asked her if I could have some tips on that and if she would mind that I did it. So the last 2 weeks of school, at 8 o'clock, we met on Google Meets. I have 22 kids in the class, and I ended up with usually about half each time. So about 11 or 12 kids. And then I would read a poem to them and then 2 bedtime stories. And they'd be all cuddled up in their pajamas and have a stuffed animal and kind of be ready to calm down for the day. And it was really, really fun. I enjoyed doing that.
Oh, that's so special. It just shows how much you care about the kids and what you do and how you realigned what you were doing throughout the course of this pandemic. I'm sure the parents really appreciated that too.
I hope so. It seemed like the kids really enjoyed it. They were so excited. Some of the parents told me they were so excited about it. So that was nice to connect with them in that way. And, that's something that later on when teachers are back in the classroom, who's to say we can't do that once a month just to connect kind of on a personal level like that too. I think that would be something nice to keep going with.
That's so interesting. I think people focus on a lot of the negative in what's going on, but I think you just clued in on something so important, and that is that we're going to walk away with it from all of this with things that we never dreamed of doing before that we actually like. So I think that would be really, really neat. If people are still interested and it's still successful, you should definitely. It just seems like a nice touch. So,
sure. Yeah. And I think the same thing with our Google Meets. Because I got to know the parents, as we were saying before, because I got to know the parents so well, I was connecting with them once a week, face to face, and I always ask them at the end, are there any questions? Do you have any concerns? Is there anything I can help you with that you're having trouble with? I wouldn't have been able to do that had we been in the classroom. So I feel like if we could continue to connect with parents, even if it's every other week, because there are a lot of parents to connect with and their time is precious as well. But to connect like that, I think we could help each other so much more in the education of their children.
That's awesome. Yeah. So more positive benefits to take forward once
sure.
whatever this ends, which could be a while, unfortunately. So that's awesome. So I did want to also just let all of our guests know that are listening, if you have any questions for Nikki as we're chatting here, just throw them in the chat window and, we'll make sure we address them as we continue to talk here. So let's maybe shift gears to the summer, right? School's either out for many or it's just ending. Like I think mine were out last week. I hear some parents still dealing with a little bit of it this week. And now we're left with kids of all ages that normally would have had camps or even like summer school was always in a fun, format so they could do things that kept them busy. Maybe I know that's really broad spectrum. So maybe let's talk about maybe like the elementary, middle school kids. Do you have any advice for parents who are trying to figure out how to still work but give their kids something to do?
Sure. So summer school is going to be online. just like we, did the end of the school year. So I was hearing that a lot of the summer schools are online as well. So of course, if kids are home or at daycare or anything like that, they can still connect online to do some summer school. There's a lot of online resources that can keep kids busy. We have quite a few that we even used right into our page, during the last 8 weeks of school, that they can continue because they're free to use for the summer. I know Scholastic has some great things out there that you can use. There's an author that's doing like lunch doodles. So they show you how to illustrate. Yeah, it's really cute. It's called Lunch Doodles with Mo Willems. He's the one that writes all the pigeons, like the pigeon books. I don't know if anyone's familiar with some of those, but he's an author of children's books, and he goes through how he illustrates them, and he goes step by step, and the kids can follow along with that. And that was a huge hit. Even during the pandemic of teaching these last 8 weeks, so many kids, I saw a lot of teachers on Facebook post that their kids were really getting into that and loved it. And that's something that's being continued as well.
Yeah, that sounds fun, even to me.
Yeah, right. I know. It's such an outlet, a mental outlet, isn't it?
Right.
A mental break.
I may have to have you send that to me.
For sure. For sure. And then there's a lot of virtual things going on too, virtual museum tours. I think a lot of the museums actually are around not just the United States, but anywhere, are actually doing virtual tours of their museum since you can't go to them right now. So that was kind of neat. I kind of put that into our social studies category, kind of soft social studies, I guess, because there wasn't much we could do with that from home, but at least there was something that they could experience through that.
Right.
And there's also virtual concerts for kids that, they can go online to listen to concerts and music. And a lot of the learning sites, like I mentioned before, too, are free for quite a while. Some only till the end of June, some till the end of July. But I know that like Khan Academy is a really big one, and right now it's all free. And they deal with every single subject that you could imagine. You can just pick what your interests are and look at that online and have some lessons. And it's lessons, but I think it's fun as well. So I think kids would enjoy that.
Yeah.
And we just have, a lot of other things. I used Mystery Science on my class page. So they always have like a 5-minute video of some facts about something. I think the last one I posted was for our kids was like, are unicorns real?
Oh.
Just kind of fun little topics that kids like.
Yeah.
So there, so if you go even just online and kind of search for some of the educational sites that are free right now, a lot of them will come up for you because they've been so kind in giving us free access to all of this during the pandemic and because of the pandemic.
That's excellent. And then so things are reopening, right? So, I know personally I've been looking for safe ways to let mine. So I'm more maybe shifting to the middle school age, right? How do I let my middle schooler try to have a social life yet be safe about it? And so like one of the things we found is like our local library did reopen. They actually distribute masks. They've made changes to the space so that it's there's the clear plastic dividers or separated tables and things like that. Because I'm not sure like pools and stuff are going to open this year either. So, just kind of thinking outside the box, if we were thinking of things to get them out of the house, but safely with masks and things like that. Do you have any advice?
Well, I love that you said the local library because that's always been close to my heart because, even when the kids were babies, we would go for story time. And it's just such a great resource for parents and all the way up through high school. They have teen programs and they have all of that. And ours also opened with restrictions. They're trying to have you limit your time in there to an hour, wear masks, try not to congregate in big groups. But they're still doing curbside pickup, so you can still go get books if you want to. And they're still trying to figure out a way to do their summer reading program, which is for little kids all the way up probably through grade school. And they do the teen program with the middle school as well. So they're trying to figure out how to do that too. other things that were going on. I actually heard that our local pool is opening.
Oh.
And they have, they are doing a limited number of people per day. And they're, of course, hand sanitizers everywhere. They're deep cleaning everything, and they're keeping their chairs further apart so not too many people in one area. So that's something that is great for especially the teens, just to get outside and go do something like that, as long as you're comfortable with it. Now, some places are opening and sometimes the rules aren't always followed, so you have to be your own judge for things like that and how comfortable you are with that too. But I know my daughter, she's 19 and she's gone mini golfing because mini golfing places are open as well. So that is something that's outside and something where they don't have to have a big group. So she's been enjoying doing that too. And beaches are open with social distancing. She's gone there, and people actually keep themselves spread apart really well at the beach too. So those are some fun non-educational things.
Yeah.
But they need that too. They need that outlet.
They do. That's really interesting. I'm glad to hear that the beaches are social distancing.
Yeah.
Well, I have a high schooler who does a lot of fishing, which makes that is also pretty easy to social distance with. But I know as he's gone past some of the beaches around here, he said he didn't see a lot of good social distancing happening. So he's been avoiding them at this point. So I'm glad to hear that maybe it just depends on the community as it relates to that. And like you said, comfort, I think, is also a big, big thing. So
for sure. Yes. And I actually saw today that the Marcus Cinemas are going to be opening on June 19th.
Okay.
So they're also doing, just another little extracurricular for some of the older kids, because there's so many, it's just minimal for the older kids. I think there's a lot more that you can do with the younger kids. But the cinemas are starting to open where you just order your concessions and your tickets online so that you don't have contact with someone, to do your ordering and things like that, and that you can just walk in and have everything already done. And just, of course, like every company that's opening, they're just saying, please social distance, please make sure you're not with a big group. And they're always putting in their, their extra cleanliness, they're cleaning more and things like that. So, again, it's the comfort level of going to places like that and how you feel. We've driven by places we were going to go, and we've seen just way too many people, and we weren't comfortable with it, so we just wouldn't go.
Right. Well, excellent. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen any questions. I think we're probably going to wrap things up. So thank you so much for joining today. I thought it was very interesting to hear how you had to acclimate during the school year, but also you had some really fantastic recommendations for summer. And every community is going to be different. I'm sure people who are watching are from all over. And so hopefully their communities will also open up soon if they're not, and people can partake in some of the social interactions that they're craving to keep busy this summer.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks everyone for joining today. Bye.
Bye.